Hello everybody. Khan Dorman. Probably the most controversial characters in all of Murder Drones. Most probably don't really care about him. Some people hate him for leaving Uzi for dead. Some only like him for the memes of being the funny door guy. And then there is the correct opinion that Khan is actually one of Murder Drone's best characters. How is that possible? Some may say he left his daughter for dead, and thus he's irredeemable. End of story. However, I beg to differ. He was not only comic relief, but they did a pretty nice redemption arc of him becoming a better father, and not as cowardly, without hogging screen time that was so desperately needed for so many other characters. He manages to provide a satisfying arc, without derailing the plot, even with episode 8 in account. First, let's recap Khan's story in the show. For anyone who hasn't fully watched the show, go do that now. Unlike the J character analysis video / defense of her character, go watch it if you haven't, where I went in chronological order of the shows in universe canon. I'll go in order of the show episode release. Basically from episode 1 through 8 excluding 6 for obvious reasons. Khan was introduced as seemingly a stern father, but it was just a bait and switch by Liam to show that Khan is more of a comic relief character. This gag may be in reference to how he was originally supposed to be the pilot's antagonist, but that's just speculation. We see his mentality on full display. He's focused on keeping the colony safe with his 3 blast-proof doors, keeping out the disassembly drones for months, according to V.
I've been trying to get past those doors for months. Nice work, En.
We also get his backstory, how he made the doors, as a coping mechanism on the wake of his wife's death. I'll let the scene play out on its own, as it's pretty funny.
Good door. There's no need to fight. Uzi, this is great news! Here, the wrench I used to tighten bolts on my first door prototypes, and to put your mother out of her misery when the Murder Drones got to her with their nanite acid. I want you to have it.
Neat. Therapy's fun.
So, then we are shown how little he thinks about Uzi, as he lets her go out so easily, on a flimsy excuse, to the point that Uzi was surprised how easy it worked. This whole scene is just to establish Khan's goofy side. As being a comic relief, he does have many funny moments in the show. Next we see Khan. He's horrified. Uzi let in a disassembly drone, the same one who, probably, killed Norai. Suddenly, En slams down, with Khan cowering in fear. Uzi then pulls out her railgun, and getting distracted with Khan's arguing, this infamous scene plays out.
Get down!
Uzi, you let a murder drone here? My beautiful doors!
Now is so not the time! I messed up, in the same way I'm about to fix it! Move, Dad! Dad, point and shoot! Trust me!
Khan leaves Uzi to die. This is the moment most people turn to hate Khan, and don't look past it. I'll come back to this point later. Anyway, the last important thing in the pilot was at the end where Uzi confronted him on him abandoning her to die. And this is the first we see of Khan questioning how he's been caring for Uzi. He looks on, knowing Uzi has a huge point, and doesn't blame her for leaving, not even doing any effort to call her back. We immediately see Khan trying to make up for this, in small ways, like in episode 2, where Khan attends the parent-teacher conference, where before he probably wouldn't attend. We can immediately see Khan trying. He's still making mistakes, but he at least defends her when her teacher calls her damaged, with probably one of my favorite lines in the show. And my favorite Khan line.
I mean, you don't think it's my parenting, do you? I left her for dead once. It sounds like she's bored in your class, and the other kids suck. Call her damaged again, and I will install a door on your face!
We also see him accepting his daughter, trying to do his best to comfort her, and with his determined expression at the scene's end is followed up in the 3rd episode. In it, he forbids Uzi from seeing those bad influency murder drones as last he's seen her. She was terrified of N, and Khan noticed that. And he went out of his way to track down the 2 popular kids of Uzi's school, to try to make Uzi socialize by getting her go to the prom. He's trying to improve, and getting Uzi to socialize was a good idea. He even chaperones, like a caring parent probably should. Next was when V came. He tries to leave, but Uzi wasn't there to make him worry about her. However, Doll seals off the doors, and he's trapped. When the doors open, he nearly gets stampeded by all the escaping students, but doesn't leave, as his daughter is there. And here we see a shift in Khan's understanding of the disassembly drones, as Uzi makes her speech. I'll get back to that point later. Next, when Uzi gets hurt, Khan comes to try to save her, if it wasn't for Doll locking the door in his face, that is. This is obviously showing how far he's come, where at first he left Uzi to die, now throwing caution to the wind to try to help his daughter. We don't see him for the rest of the episode, so we skip to episode 4. He's only in the beginning, but this sets up why Uzi's in the camp. We also get a bit caught up on Khan and Norai's past. We find out that the doors weren't thought up by Khan, but Norai. Norai in her crazed ramblings told Khan to build doors against the coming sky demons.
She was always all, build doors against the coming sky demons.
I'll come back to this, but I feel that it's important to show how Khan came to be so attached to doors, other than just being a comic relief. He doesn't do much in 5. But I guess it does show how much he trusts Uzi, looking completely unfazed at Uzi inviting N and V, just being happy that Uzi is socializing, and putting his faith in Uzi's judgment. We also see how much he's grown in terms of being confident, as he gets a bit snarky with Doll, after she pins him to the wall. He doesn't appear in 6, so we move on to 7, with my favorite portrayal of his character. So, apparently, he gave Norai's ramblings a second chance reading through them, and realized if all of this was right, the planet was basically screwed. So instead of sitting on his hands, he actually tries to do something. He reconstructs Uzi's railgun. In one of his most badass scenes decides to go full on Duke Nukem and take the fight to the solver.
It's time to kick ass and chew bubble gum, and I'm all out of gum.
Later crashing the episode 4 school bus into J.
Vroom, 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 vroom.
Surprise, motherfucker!
And looking so confident while doing so. But, it was set up for almost nothing, as the fight of Khan, Lizzie, and Thod vs Jay were sidelined in episode 8. He did greet the bus as it greeted back, so that was neat. And then Khan saved Den's life, by shutting the door on Sim's eldritch tentacles. I think it's a fun way to include Khan in the fight, with his major crutch in the show being the way he saves one of the main cast members, and how he gets a hit in on the big bad of the show. Then Khan and Norai unite, but it's only one cute scene that didn't last long enough. And the last scene with Khan being extra supportive of Uzi during her project, which was nice to see him come full circle and care so much for Uzi. Now that we covered his run in the show, it's already a pretty nice, subtle arc. An arc of a father who left his daughter to die, and slowly getting better as a father, to being one who's very supportive of his daughter. I know there are a lot of background details that say things like doors are better than Uzi, but you've got to remember that the show is a horror comedy, with Khan being a comic relief, so some things aren't meant to be taken with great seriousness. and even this one argument against him, I can see being unraveled in episode 2, with the detective lady saying something about his daughter being more important than building a door in this hallway, with the other one agreeing. This already shows that Khan is putting more attention to Uzi than normal, and compared to the average worker drone. Also, let me play devil's advocate for the infamous scene in episode 1, where Uzi is left for dead. But before I do, I just want to explain his love of doors. In episode 4, we find out that he got so attached to doors, because it was something Norai wanted Khan to do for a long time. So, it's not only for defense, but to keep Norai's legacy alive, and fulfill her wishes. So, Khan has PTSD of losing Norai, probably to the same drone that has Uzi bind to a wall. So not great, but understandable. But, you also have to consider, Uzi's railgun blew up earlier. He has no idea if it works, other than Uzi telling him to trust it working. If he took his chances, it would just provoke Ken to attack, and then he'd have the colony to himself. And thus brings me to my last point. Khan closing the door was saving everyone in the bunker. If he died, then N, V and J would be shooting fish in a barrel. All the workers would have been stuck in a bunker, with no way out, and just get slaughtered. So, it puts things in a more grey area. Sure, it was a very bad parenting move, but there are so many more factors to it. And, he does improve from here. Khan also does trust Uzi a lot more now. He trusted in Uzi's judgment of letting in the disassembly drones, to the point where he wasn't even phased over N or V, instead being happy that his daughter is socializing. This started with Uzi's speech in episode 3, where we can see Khan being moved by her little speech. And it's so full circle to see him reconstruct Uzi's railgun, whereas in the pilot he was too afraid to pick up the weapon. Here he doesn't care, and will do anything to save his daughter, and the planet. When at first he couldn't lift a weapon to a disassembly drone, he actively picks a fight with one. It's a shame we didn't get to see Khan, Ted, and Lizzie versus Jay. So, to conclude, Khan is a character with a subtle arc, of becoming a better father to Uzi, and going from having defense as a crutch, to being a badass, and a better father. He's funny, cool, and a bit of a bumbling buffoon, that is trying his best to be the best. And even though episode 8 didn't do much with him, he was still pretty cool all things considered. But most importantly, what do you all think? Has your opinion changed? Do you have any feedback, or criticism? If so, drop a comment. As of now, sayonara.
I'm Khan, I'm a terrible dad! The whole city's on fire!